A phrase that I've heard time and time and time again as a coach is I want to look like I lift. I want to look like I go to the gym, and I want to look like I work out. And my response is too damn right. Obviously, that's always been a goal of mine, is to look like I lift. Not for anyone else's benefit but myself, to show myself that my inputs are reflecting the outputs that I'm seeing when I look in the mirror. So in this video, I'm going to be going through how exactly you're going to look like you lift, because I'm sure you're someone that trains really hard, consistent in the gym, and you're unsure as to why it doesn't look like you're lifting 3-4 days a week. What you're referring to when you say you want to look like you lift is you want the visible muscle tissue, you want the lines, you want the definition. And when you put that little top on, you wouldn't mind a bit of shoulder popping out. And everything I'm about to say, you can apply this to every body part. But in this video, I'm going to refer exclusively to shoulders because they are the things that are responsible for giving you this shape up top. My goal for you after watching this video is for you to be able to walk away and know exactly what you should be doing with your training, your nutrition, in order to have the physique that A, you can look back at your own photos on and be blown away with the way you look, and B, not continuously criticize yourself whenever you see a photo of yourself or your friends taken of you. So the main thing that we're going to be covering, like I said, is going to be your upper body, because that I feel like is responsible for a lot of the shape you've got. It's, for me, my pride and joy. It's what I feel most confident with because I spent so much time trying to build it up, and I love that look. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea in terms of having shoulders and developed delts, but for me, it's been the thing that I feel proud of. What is the first thing we think about when we think about lean, sculpted, toned arms? I don't like those words, but we normally think about those high intensity, low weight, burning, toning, blasting workouts, and they are everywhere. If I just do a quick search, toning arm workouts, there are thousands of videos that come up. 10 minutes toned arms workouts, no equipment. 5-minute toned arm workout, no equipment. 10-minute Pilates arms, minimal equipment. 20-minute toned arms, sculpting standing arms. Okay, so you can see that these videos are very popular. Are they popular because they work, or are they popular because they reel you in because you think if I can get there in 5 minutes, then I will do that? B, the latter is the correct answer. These videos are not going to be the things that are going to give you the shape that looks like you lift. They're not going to be the workouts that are actually going to build muscle tissue. The reason as to why we think these burning, toning, sculpting workouts with millions of views work is because they do just that. They burn and it feels effective. But that burning sensation doesn't equate to fat loss, nor does it equate to building muscle tissue. Unless you are brand new to lifting, then your body will respond to the stimulus because it's new. Your body's not yet used to it. So anything new that you're doing in the gym will require an adjustment period. So if you're brand new to lifting, you will see substantially more progress in the first 6 to 12 months than someone's been lifting for 3, 4, 5+ years. This is why you want progressive overload, is to make sure that you're continuously progressing with time. The problem with these low weight, high rep workouts is that you hit a bit of an upper limit. There's not actually that much more that you can progress on unless you're doing 200 reps, 300 reps. You will hit a bit of a plateauing point and then you wonder why you're still not seeing progress because you're still doing all the right things. The problem isn't your willpower, your discipline, but we just now need to fine tune how we're looking at strength training, how we're looking at body composition to then develop physique even further. Before I actually get into the training side of things, there's just a couple of bits I'm going to cover when it comes to muscle. You cannot tone a muscle. That is not something you can do. You've got one of 3 choices here. You can either build the muscle, you can maintain the muscle, or you can decrease the size of the muscle tissue. When we think about these toning workouts, because you're not really progressing, you would in theory be maintaining. The problem is our perception around building muscle tissue. We think that it's going to create this bulky, this heavy, this non-toned look, or this non-defined sculpted look, which by the way, I don't really like those words. I don't really ever use the word toned or sculpted. That's not really part of my vocabulary, but I'm going to use it for the sake of this video because we're all very familiar with those words, but also what those words translate to in terms of the way that we look. We think that lifting high reps and low weight is going to create a leaner, tighter look. And then on the flip side, we think that lifting low reps and really heavy weight is going to create a bulkiness to us. Obviously, for a lot of women, that is terrifying because that's the opposite of the goal that we've got in mind. But if anything, that is what we need to get closer to. And that could well be the reason as to why you've been plateauing for a long period of time, is because you've been avoiding the heavy weights, the training till failure, trying to push yourself in the gym. Instead, we stick to the high reps, we stick to the body weight or the low weight, which could be those 2 kg dumbbells that we're all very familiar with, because we're scared. A lot of the reason as to why we're scared is because it's just the way society has been for a long period of time, back in the 90s, back in the 2000s. Not a style of training that you would typically see women do. Thankfully, we turned a corner. We are now seeing more women in the gym and I love it. And the second reason as to why maybe we're worried about it is because we're worried that we're going to feel worse than what we do. I remember there's a time for me back in, I think it must have been 2018, and I was not in a good place. I was not liking the way that I felt myself. I actually just put on about 25 kilograms and was at a very dark place. And I remember it very clearly. There was one day I was in the gym and I was going there with intention to be lifting weights. I was having a very bad body image day this day, and I remember this split second thought where I was just like, no, I'm not doing this. I am not lifting weights, because in my head, obviously lack of knowledge, I thought that it would just make me, again, feel worse, feel bulkier, feel heavier, and make me gain more mass. And obviously, lifting weights does help you gain mass, but not in the sense of it being a bad thing. If anything, it's going to be the reason as to why you're going to have, like I said, that more of a defined, leaner shape. These videos are popular, like I said, not because they necessarily work for the results you want, but because these creators getting paid. The more likes they get, the more watches they get, the more money they get, the more videos they make. And we stay stuck in this loop. So I'm here to break that loop down, to get you in the gym, to get you lifting, and get you taking weight training seriously. Because I promise you right now, once you start, it'll be the best thing you ever do for yourself, but also your physique, also for metabolic health, hormonal health, brain health, preventing osteoporosis, managing stress levels, also just having a much better health span. So there's lots of benefits that go beyond just your physique. That's not the point of this video. So when it comes to this upper body look, we have a few parts that we want to be focusing on. I think when we think about arms, we think about just training triceps and biceps. However, like I said, I think the biggest thing that's going to change your physique up top is going to be your shoulders. And I know that a lot of women are scared of shoulders because they think that they're going to look out of proportion. Like I said, it has been the best thing I've done. And also for clients as well, they were scared. They were skeptical 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line. They actually came to me and said, thank goodness you pushed me to do that, because otherwise I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have the physique that I now feel so confident in showing off. So your shoulders, think about they're broken down into 3 parts. You have your front delt, you have your side delt, and you have your rear delt. We want to make sure that A, we're hitting all parts of your shoulder and training in various different ways, but also making sure that we're not neglecting your chest. Again, chest is something that I think for women we run from, but that's also responsible for hitting this front delt. And we want to make sure that, again, our front and back are working simultaneously. So yes, you're working your back, but we still want to make sure we're hitting chest to an extent. And it might be that your goal isn't to have a big chest, and I'm sure it probably isn't, but equally, we want to make sure that we're still hitting it a couple of times a week. Make sure that, again, we're not out of proportion. So for this front delt, we're thinking about this part here of our body. There's a few ways that you can hit this front delt. We're thinking about an Arnold press, or we're thinking about a landmine press, where we're leaning forwards into that movement. You could try an overhead press. So they're your compound. My favorite isolation movement would be more of a front delt, whereby we can do this on the cable, we can do this on a plate, where we're holding a plate either side. You can also do this by holding a dumbbell on either side, or you can do this as a unilateral movement, whereby you're holding just that one dumbbell or the one cable D handle and focusing on this one front delt only. Obviously a few ways, as you can see, that we can hit that front delt. Then we move on to our side delt, so that side cap part of our shoulder. For the side delt, you're predominantly looking at a lat raise. Again, you can either do this by dumbbells, you can do this on the cable. My personal favorite is just your standard dumbbell lat raise. So then for rear delts, there's only really a couple that I personally love. The first being a face ball. Again, you can do this either standing or seated on the floor, or kneeling. The second one would be a rear delt fly. So you can do this either by bending over, dumbbells, or you can do this on a machine, or alternatively, you can do this on a cable stack, whereby you're coming out to the side. So you can see there's a few ways of hitting your shoulder. We want to make sure that we're hitting all parts of that shoulder within our weekly training split. Then we move into the back. We've got 2 ways of essentially hitting back. We've got a vertical pull, or we've got horizontal row. I don't really have a preference. I just love upper body. We're thinking about a wide grip and also a narrow grip. Your wide grip, we're thinking of like a wide grip pull down, a mag pull down. We're thinking about a wide grip pull up or a band assisted pull up. But we really want to get this wide stretch within our back. Then we move into this narrow positioning here. We'll do a narrow grip pull down or an underhand pull down as well. And then finally, the horizontal rows, you can do a kneeling mid grip row. You can also do a seated V-bar cable row, you can do a 3-point row. We just basically want to get as narrow as we can into the body and really driving this elbow in to hit that lat better. And then for chest, we have our chest-based pressing movements, and then we also have our fly-based movements. So for our pressing movements, we could do a barbell bench press, we could do a dumbbell incline press, we could do a push-up, we can do a plate-loaded chest press, we can also do a pin-loaded chest press. There are so many different moves that we can do. So obviously, you don't want to be putting them all into your training plan because that would be too much volume per week. And then finally, for our fly-based movements, we have an incline cable fly. You could try a pec deck. You could try an incline dumbbell fly. You could try a flat bench fly. There are lots of different moves that we can do. There are also thousands of exercises, so I don't want you to get worried if I'm carried away about choosing the perfect one. It really depends on what feels best for your body. Within those as well, I know that you're probably thinking, like, where at this point do we bring in triceps and biceps? Still train your triceps and biceps, it definitely won't hurt. So I want you to remember that when you're doing your compound movements for your upper body, you're still working both triceps and biceps. So any pressing movements, so things like your chest, you're still working your triceps. Any pulling movements, so like I said, we've got that vertical pull or the horizontal row, you're still going to be working your biceps, but just not isolating them. So this is where you can pull in some bicep curls or tricep extensions. Now we know a little bit around what we're going to be doing. I guess the question is how. how do we do this? How do we bring that in over the week? We want to make sure we're hitting upper body at least 2 times per week, if not 3. I personally opt for 2, and it has worked very well. But I guess it depends for you on how long you've been training, but also what your recovery is like. If your recovery feels quite slow and you're always feeling a bit sore, you're always feeling a bit achy, opt for 2 days per week. On a 3-day split, this could look like lower body, upper body, full body. On that full body, you're obviously hitting upper body as well as your legs. If you're still wanting to eat 3 days a week, but you want to hit upper body 3 times, you could look to do 3 full bodies per week. On that 4-day split, you might just want to stick to the standard upper lower split. So you might want to do a combined push and pull session on one of the days, and then again another combined session on the other days. You can do a pull day and a push day, but I personally prefer doing both in one day, just to distribute that session over the week to make your sessions feel a little bit easier, which brings me to the next point, which is training till failure. If, for example, you're doing a full back session or a full pull day, you might get to exercise 3 and be absolutely floored, because you're training close to failure, which is what we need to simulate muscle growth. This is why I personally prefer doing a little bit of chest, a little bit of arms, a little bit of shoulders, a little bit of back within my body day, as opposed to doing a full back day, for example. When we think about building that muscle tissue, this is what we don't get necessarily through those high rep workouts. We want to make sure we're getting about 1 to 3 reps out from failure. True failure is basically where you cannot move that weight. It's stuck. There is no way that you can do 1 more rep. Your body has reached failure. I guess a few ways that you can kind of gauge as to how close you are to failure would be how quick your reps are. If your rep 1 looks the same as your rep 10 and your goal is 10 reps, you've definitely got a few more reps in you. So you either increase your rep range within moderation. We want to be staying within sort of the 6 to 12 rep range, if not 15 max. If you're surpassing 15 reps and it's still feeling easy, you're actually stronger than what you think. So you can then get away with increasing your weight. I guess the other way to gauge it is if you know you're at failure is if you can't lift that weight anymore. So they would be the 2 easiest ways really to measure failure. Or you can trial a bit of a challenge whereby you finish a set, give it a couple of seconds. If you can perform more reps after that, you've got more in the tank. So that would be how I would measure how close you are to training to failure. We need to be training close to failure to then simulate enough muscle growth. Your body's very clever, it adapts, and before you know it, 2-3 months down the line, what was once really hard has now become easy. In order to continue to build muscle tissue, we need to then continue to place new stimuluses on that muscle tissue. So in order to build that muscle tissue, we basically need to create an environment where your body has to adapt. So we're either looking at increasing your weights, we're looking at increasing your sets, or your reps. I personally probably wouldn't increase your sets because otherwise you're going to be fatiguing pretty quickly. Rep ranges for hypertrophy, 6 to 12, like I said, 15 max would be a good idea. But for me, personally, 12 is good, probably my max, because I'm working on fatigue management. And if I want to make sure that I can complete a full workout, I don't want to be burning out from the get-go. So that solid training is what is going to basically allow muscle growth to happen. What's not, like I said, those 2 kg dumbbells that just don't really get much from. Like I said, that pain that you're maybe feeling, that burning, doesn't mean that you're building muscle tissue. Like I said, we need that muscle tissue to be built to then allow us to have a physique that looks like it lifts. That is what's going to be contributing to having a toned physique, I suppose. Definitely don't be training every day. You are at your weakest in the gym. Although it feels like you're really, really strong because you're pushing the numbers, you're not. You need your rest days. You need good quality sleep. You need to making sure you're getting your calories in, and in particular protein. Protein per person, I mean, you could get away with having 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Max top end would be about 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. But what you don't need to do is overload your system by having too much protein. Problem becomes maybe digestive issues. I've seen it happen a lot of the time. Too much protein can cause your stomach to do all kinds of funny things. The second one as well is obviously if you're having too much protein, more protein than what you need, you're basically removing calories that you need from carbohydrates and fats, especially when you're weight training, especially when you're training hard, you are going to be needing carbohydrates as your primary source of energy. Fats, of course, because we're women as well. So they're the few things when it comes to training, but also nutrition. The other things as well, obviously, that actually go into it is time and patience. One thing weight training has taught me is patience and building physique as well. It's not as quick as we made out to be. Time is going to be the most important thing when it comes to actually seeing visible muscle tissue. Something that we think that we can get in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. You see 30-day workout plans and you wonder why we're left with disappointment. And that's just because you've not done it for as long as you need to. Rather than thinking of weeks, I want you to start thinking years. While that might seem terrifying, you will feel more disappointed by setting yourself a timeline that's 30 days or 60 days, as opposed to where you could be in 3 years' time. And you will see progress, obviously a lot shorter than that. I came into fitness thinking that I could get there in a very short period of time. And because I'm talking days, I'm talking 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, okay, well, months, but either way, days. And I was severely disappointed. I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought it was my body, but actually it literally just wasn't giving it enough time and exposure to the gym. And also the fact that I was trying so hard to cling on to a very heavy deficit then I wondered why why progress was so slow. And now looking back, I'm like, well, it's clear as day. Like, that was the reason as to why. Calorie deficit was too big. I wasn't training efficiently. I wasn't even weight training altogether. If my camera angle changes because my camera has overheated. But to finish off this video and round it up, we now need to be looking at body fat percentage. You might find that the other part of the equation is that you've got the muscle there, but there's just a little layer of body fat covering it. We now need to look into how we can bring that down. The method, which is my group coaching program, which is a fat loss based program, shows you exactly how you can lose fat without losing your sanity. There are ways of putting yourself in deficit that aren't going to cause muscle loss, that aren't going to cause the most intense food cravings, and also just questioning your decision as to why you even started this fat loss phase in the first place. The first thing being is that set yourself a timeline. Don't say, I'm just going to work on losing body fat this year. It will take you a year. You want to make sure that you've got a specific time frame. I say between 8 and 12 weeks. If you've got more to lose in that time, what I would then do is do a diet break in between, or at least spend some time on maintenance. But you don't really want to be dieting for any longer than probably 3 to 4 months at a time. So I personally would find a sweet spot in the middle, maybe say 10 weeks. That could be your fat loss phase. Said this depends on the person, how much body fat you got to lose, but it's a really good starting point. You need to then set yourself a realistic calorie target that you can stick to. The more realistic it is, the more endurant you're going to be, and the more body fat you're going to lose over time. My personal favorite is a staggered approach. You start off in a little bit of a more moderate deficit, and it gets a bit more intense the closer you get to the end of your deficit, because you know that you've got 2 weeks left. And you can do that. But essentially, my job as your coach is to take the thinking out of it. I'll help you stick to it. And I think the biggest problem for most women that I found is that they know what to do, but it's just doing it is a completely different story. It's hard, it can be emotional. We've got years of beliefs around food that just get in our heads and make us feel like we can't do certain things. Experiencing not a great relationship with food, having years of warped programming around what they should and shouldn't be doing, whether it be emotions, whether it be stress, whether it be holidays, whether it just be adherence. But that is my job as a coach. If you are interested in working together, there's a link below for my online coaching. Alternatively, if you keep your eyes out for a couple of months' time, there will be potentially TBC, another intake of the method, which is Mindful's very successful group coaching program, which is specifically focusing on building muscle tissue, but also losing body fat at the same time, which is essentially your recomp. So just to round up, to then have this body that we are so proud of, we want to make sure that we're training each body part at least 2 to 3 times per week, making sure that we're having rest days, again, at least 2 to 3 times per week. We're focusing on making sure we're eating enough protein per day. We're making sure that we're focusing on the quality of our diet. We're also making sure that we're not dieting continuously, but also making sure that we're not dieting for too long at one time. I would really encourage you to actually forget the scales when you're going through this process. You will likely find that scale weight doesn't move as much as what you think it should. Please don't be measuring your progress by purely one number on the scale. If you're building muscle, you're building something. You're building a mass inside your body. That mass can make you look completely different. If you think about pound for pound, body fat and muscle tissue will weigh the same, but yet the space in the body that they take up, completely different. Muscle tissue is a lot more dense, a lot more compact. It will take up less room for the same weight as body fat does. Body fat will take up a lot more space. So yes, you could be losing body fat because you're in that mild deficit, but you're training really efficiently, you're training correctly, and therefore you're building a new mass inside the body, which is going to be muscle tissue, making you look completely different. But yeah, scale weight might tell you otherwise. You are going to weigh yourself, take a couple of readings of scale weight per week, then take an average. But your best bet by far is going to be progress photos and body metrics, but also just how you're feeling in your clothes day to day. The other thing that will make the world of difference is stop guessing your workouts. Please go in with a plan, making sure that you're following the same movements back to back, week on week, to really make sure that you're having as much chance and exposure to progressive overload and consistency over time. But if you need any help, like I said, you know exactly where to go. All the links are below. And if you have found this video helpful, please make sure that you give it a like, it'd be much appreciated. You subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. And if you have loved it that much, feel free to leave a comment. And you can find more information over on my Instagram, which again, I'll put the link below. But I'll see you all in the next one. And good luck building.